Good morning and welcome to the Old School, a podcast about the American education system, its traits, mores, ideas, thoughts, conjectures, speculations, ruminations, pontifications, problems, solutions, and so far as we know, the solutions. Good morning, here, Dr. Bourgeois.
Morning here, Miller. I was listening to your list. I started to take notes, but the thing you didn't say, which you often say, is foibles.
We can do that too. Foibles, yeah.
Well, I mean, you're the only person I know who's ever said the.
Well, I got a lot going on over here. I can't think of everything all the time, so.
So do you prepare for this? Like you spend the week, writing, script and jokes and the things that you, in these little introductions, are you actually reading?
Well, no, I'm not reading. It just comes off the top of the head. But however, I do have hot off the press. I have letters from listeners, and just thought I'd read like two or three of them. Just some thoughts that people have sent to us at the Old School headquarters, the nurturing environs and the nurturing bosom of North Texas. So
you had them printed on a piece of paper.
Yeah. Well, they're coming in by the stack full. So I just thought
we don't take
comments. Because we don't allow comments on the internet. People have turned to writing letters. So
they're writing you personally.
Yeah. So here's just a couple. Just kind of.
You're actually going to read a letter now. Is this lengthy?
No, just relax. It's going to be fine. Dear Old School. Having just listened to the podcast on conversations in the classroom, I could not help but admire the gentle good humor and sense of insight that Ross displayed throughout the episode. Matt was brilliant, thoughtful, and also Canadian. Steve seemed a little grumpy. Signed, Connie S.
Who? Do you know this person?
No, just a listener, I mean, you can be grumpy every once in a while. I mean, it happens.
How you made this up? How did they actually get it to you? I mean,
no, it came in the mail. Here's another one. Dear Old School. What a wonderful episode when you two discuss athletics in school. Not only was Ross on point with his argument, his thoughtful, emotional retelling of how his beloved Colts left Baltimore brought me to tears. Clearly one of the most powerful emotional moments of the podcast. Steve seemed a bit sluggish. Signed, Frank E.
Okay, so these are clearly things that you've made up.
No. I mean, just straight off the press. I mean, just straight out of the mailbox. One more. Just
somebody by the name of Frank.
No, I know many people by many names. So this is one last one here. Dear Old School, I just wanted to write a quick email after listening to the episode on student voice. Ross's questions were insightful and thought-provoking. Dr. Nyland was extraordinarily poised and wise. Steve seemed a little angry. Signed, Mike W. So, I don't know. It's just three. I mean, we've done a bunch of these. I mean, you surely can't be great every single time we step to the mic, as it were. So
it's like new territory. You're preparing things and it's shtick. And
what are you talking about?
I barely said a word with Larry Nyland. I introduced him, great man, by the way, and
great man. Yes.
How could I be angry? I
don't know. That's it's all about perception. It's not necessarily what we intend to project, but sometimes people pick it up as different things. So. But listen, again, these are just three comments about three podcasts. This is our 38th podcast or something like that. I mean, I'm sure you're great all the other times.
So you're actually thinking about the podcast in between Saturdays to actually write those things and prepare them and bring them.
No. Like I said, it's came in the mail. So
there is a feature on most platforms, and we're on many, where we actually can get comments. We'd probably be getting hate mail, don't you think?
Well, it does beg the question, when you ask for comments, do you really want comments, or would you just rather be ignorant of how things are falling out there?
I think if it's a one-way conversation where we talk to them and they write a comment, then we intentionally do not respond. Yeah. I mean, the last thing we want is to get into conversations that go back and forth. I mean, then we have, what do you call it? It's not even called Facebook anymore. You know what it's called?
It's called hell. And every time you read those comments, like on a news report or it doesn't take long before Hitler comes up. So let's go ahead and just nip it in the bud, and let's just prevent Nazism from showing up in our comment section. So
it does kind of close out a conversation, and somebody has nothing left to give.
Let's remember that older German lady, say what you want about Hitler, which is never a great way to start a conversation. It's a horrible sentence starter. Nothing good can come after that. So anyway, wow. What are you going to do?
I don't know. So are we talking about public discourse, or what is our topic today?
Well, just thinking about, because we've hinted about this from time to time, but the notion of where do we as educators stand on the great pecking order of occupations in society? How are we viewed? How are we seen? Of course, one way that sometimes people can construe public opinion is how we are portrayed, say, in movies and things of that nature. I thought it'd be kind of interesting to delve a little bit into that and what we think might be the reasons for whether we are seen in a good or bad light, but perhaps also how other folks see their teachers in other countries.
Okay. Well, that are we assuming that the conversation will go that teachers are underappreciated and there are stereotypes that persist because they're reinforced by media?
There's certainly stereotypes. I mean, as far as being underappreciated, I mean, I guess you can make a case for that, but the idea about stereotypes is that there is a particular fallacy in a stereotype. There's a potential problem with trying to make broad generalizations about something, especially something as varied as something like this. I would believe that it is not the case that we are universally underappreciated. I wonder to what you've had people inviting you into their homes to make dinner for you. Maybe you've not really felt underappreciated in your career.
No, I was beloved by student and parent and administrator alike. I was really a unicorn in that sense, because usually you're beloved by one or of those parties, but not all simultaneously. So yeah, I put a high bar up there, contrary to your hate mail that you read at the beginning of the show.
Hate mail seems a strong word.
Yeah, I'm popular no matter what context, because I'm charming. Has anyone called you charming, Ross?
Nobody.
They call you grizzled, grumpy,
curmudgeon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Curmudgeon. Luddite.
Brilliant.
I mean, the Luddite part you take as a compliment.
No, I don't accept Luddite, because Luddite is someone who has a fear or suspicion of technology. I just have questions. I believe, much like indoor plumbing, I believe there is a place for some level of technology. The question is how much of it. And so I'm not going to put myself in the category of an automatic contrarian as it relates to technology. I am using a damn Zoom thing right now, or whatever this is called, to record these things. So clearly the notion of technology in and of itself is not an issue.
That was a departure from our topic, and I
like
myself. So we're talking about teachers, and in some places, like Germany, for example, the teachers treated with a lot more respect, and they're honored. Their pay reflects that honor. Not only what they receive while they're teaching, but they have a handsome retirement that's comparable to what they get when they're teaching, unlike what we have here. So I think the people put their money where their mouth is to some extent as far as honoring teachers.
So the parameters by which we judge how a society views teachers is not necessarily based upon how they're treated per se by parents or administrators or what have you, but rather by how they're paid or compensated.
Well,
can a teacher be appreciated without it being obvious within their pay or pension plan?
Yeah, it just it has to do with the dynamics, particularly with a parent. Do they strike the idea that the teacher is working for them? And are they presumptuous? Like get this to me by tomorrow or whatever? Are they respectful and mindful that teachers have 120 students and that their child is not going to rise to the top of the list immediately because they emailed them?
Right. So you're suggesting that in a society where teachers are more appreciated, this attitude does not exist, or does not exist to the degree that we have here.
I don't know. I think it's complicated. I'm thinking about my own, not my teachers, but the teachers of my kids. And so we're very impressed with, many of them, most of them, quite frankly. We don't really have a platform to thank them, unless there's an email communication. And whenever there is, if we request something, there's always a moment, and I always take advantage of it, where I thank them for what they're doing, and because I've been there. But I guess it's kind of a thankless job to that extent that it's not readily available, the platform to pat teachers on the back.
Well, in your time in Germany, because one of the things when we talk to our colleagues in Germany, one of the things that they have often said to us in dread is the notion of conference day. The idea of an entire day where one set of parents after another parade in to talk about their kid or what have you. It does not appear, even though we would probably generally say teachers are more respected in Germany than they are in the US, it does not appear that the parents do not show up to fet the teacher, but rather to have conversations not dissimilar from what we have when we talk to parents.
Yeah, you would think that the content would be the same. So I don't know how much ground we have on our argument. I mean, we think that teachers are underappreciated because of their pay, their benefits, their retirement, their standing. I mean, consider teachers or young people going into the profession. Is it a sought after profession? If you look at Germany or Finland, for example, it's like Finland, it's number one. It's the most sought after college major. And there's an impression that it's a bit of a fallback. You don't go into college saying, okay, I'm going to be a teacher. It usually comes later, is my impression. It's not their top choice.
After you flunked out engineering school or something along those lines, or?
Yeah, maybe so. But I'm probably being unfair. There are a lot of people who consider it their calling to, right out of the gates. But
Sure.
But some of us, myself and probably you included, we were fighting it and thinking we could get into a more lucrative field or anything. But being around high school kids all day didn't seem so great. And then it turned out we liked it.
Well, here's my thing about gauging our level of standing in society based upon pay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that there's a single other classification of government worker that measures their worth based upon their pay. I think the assumption is when you work for the state or when you work for the federal government, you are not set up for a lifetime of the finest meats and cheeses in the land. And so the notion that somehow when you go into the profession, I mean, any teacher that complains about pay, I don't know where to start with that. Yes, I understand that you could say that, one state or another doesn't pay that much. I get it. But at the same time, you knew that going in. Second of all, who expects a large commensurate with one's inherent value kind of paycheck and compensation from the status of a state employee? I would like to get paid more, but I'm also under no illusions as to who and what I am. So that's why I have a hard time making pay the barometer by which we judge whether a teacher is respected or not.
Well, I think it's one of many factors.
Sure.
The other thing about people, in other professions, even government type professions, is that there is a track towards upward mobility. The longer you're stay with a company or in a industry, whatever it is, you get benefits from that over time. So you may double or triple your salary based upon, when you get to retirement,
Right.
And I would argue that the teachers, unless they go into administration, and even so, that's not that big of a bump, their career path is not as promising as far as, making more money over time. You tend to, get, cost of living, maybe little bumps, but it's incremental compared to, promotion in other fields.
Well, I think the problem with that is that, we are a profession that any kind of promotion would actually have us leaving the profession. You're either a teacher or you're not a teacher. There does not tend to be kind of a middle ground. And that was, when I was first thinking about the idea of retiring, that's where I kind of came face to face with this type of reality, because my options beyond the classroom were for sure outside of the classroom, be it administrator, and there's no way in hell I was going to be an administrator. I don't have that talent. I don't have that skill set.
No,
to be an administrator.
No one would like it.
It couldn't be good for anybody, for the parents, for the teachers, for me. So I think teaching is kind of a weird duck in that way, because there are no other options for you to stay in the classroom, but then to do something different from what you do in the classroom. I think you can't, again, I can't help but think that you can't look at education in the same way as you might judge other professions.
Well, it is interesting about mobility, and you're applying for a job, and you put on your resume, I taught high school for 14 years or something. Are the employers going to be so excited to hire you? Maybe it's.
I sure hope so.
Yeah, I know we need that, or somebody who's been in the military and maybe took early retirement, or the word on the street is that that's a different category, because they have leadership experience and all kinds of things they bring to the table. But I don't think it's the same perception of a teacher that people are knocking down the door to hire them.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like most of the attitudes, at least as it relates to pay or compensation, or what have you, seems to be the product of judging education by what it's not rather than by what it is, and again, I'm kind of left to go back to that, the kind of the basic question, how are we seen? I think it's tricky to judge us based upon how parents view us, because that's going to be a feast or famine proposition, because ultimately it depends upon what our interaction is with their student and their kid and how their kid did in our particular class. And typically no nuanced conversation like, well, how did the student do in the class? How much of it was their fault or the teacher's fault or what have you? There's not typically a lot of in-depth conversation or thought given to that. It usually tends to be a black or white thing. If people come out and say, we think you're a horrible teacher, or we think you're a great teacher, And so, the more I try to think about what it means to be well appreciated, the more I struggle to figure out what that would even look like if it were to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Think about a elementary teacher. That's a little bit more prominent with a parent, because it's one person and they're working with that teacher, interacting all year. They develop some knowledge of them. And
we need to have an elementary teacher on, by the way.
Yeah, it's going to be our little tagline. Never going to happen. But now, what was I just saying? We were talking about
the notion of how elementary teachers, for example, are quite different.
There you go. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for bringing me back.
Thank you. You're welcome.
But as you get to the middle school, high school, where the kid has multiple teachers, we as parents don't really develop an impression of many of them. We get emails, from the district where you teach. They keep it to once a week sometimes, but not necessarily. but we're talking about 3 kids and 7, 8 teachers for each kid, and they all have emails about what they're doing in math class, or here's our fun activity in social studies, and don't forget to bring your binder, and so what I do is I don't have an auto delete or a block thing, but I definitely summarily delete them. So I don't know. I mean, I know the band teachers and the ones that they see year after year, but those one-offs, I have no relationship with. I don't know them. I wouldn't recognize them. I don't even know their name. And so I think there's something happens at that level that there is no impression, positive or negative.
So what are we left with? I mean, first of all, does parents even need to reach out to a particular teacher to show appreciation or to show kind of a level of respect? Does the fact that sometimes parents stay out of the teacher's way and don't communicate, don't overly inquire about this thing or that thing, is that a sign of appreciation? It is true. I will tell you, as a teacher, I really don't. It's a little bit like as a veteran. I'll have people come up to me who find out I'm a veteran, and they'll say, "Thank you for your service." And I have, obviously responded,
right.
As I appreciate your words. Thank you very much. Right. In the beginning, I really didn't know how to take that, really? And I really didn't know how to kind of see it. I didn't know how to value it. On some level, you just saw it as something that people said as soon as they found out you were a veteran. But obviously, a ton of people sincerely, deeply mean it, because they're not just talking to you. They're talking to their grandfather who served. They're talking to their mom who served, or something like that. I mean, so I've come to have a different appreciation with that. When people talk about teachers, I sometimes run into the same problem, but I've never come to terms with it, because you have some people that'll say, "Oh my goodness, you're a teacher. There's no way I could do that. You must have the patience of Job." And nothing, though, in that. One is very varied. Usually it's the same notes, and I don't pay you enough. Oh, okay, thank you. It's I don't know how to respond to it. I don't know how to say it. Sometimes it feels like that I'm both being quote unquote appreciated and also denigrated in a way. And I don't know how to balance the two. I don't know what I'm actually hearing from people. And so, and that's why I'm just thinking about what constitutes a profession that is appreciated and respected.
That's really hard, because you may feel like you're being complimented and insulted at the same time. How can you trap yourself in a room with kids for 20 years? Thank you for doing it so I don't have to, or something. But maybe to get back to what you said at the beginning, some of that comes from the media. I mean, parents don't know what goes on in schools. They're not in there. So all they have are movies of, I don't know. I try not to watch any movies since 1980, but there's an impression that schools can be really rough places or really silly places, with comedy, and we're gonna, we think about Welcome Back, Kotter. That's how old we are, And,
but isn't that the feast or famine nature of how we are portrayed? I mean, because you sit there and you think about, what is the last great movie that you ever heard or saw that showed teachers in kind of an honest way? Because you either get the quirky, goofy kind of staff, with the absent-minded principal and the overly sardonic English teacher who can quote Shakespeare at a drop of a hat, or you get the other one where it's the, Bill Burr the comedian talked about the fact that, how many movies do we see where the one teacher goes into the hardened school and first of all is not appreciated. Then they start, bringing out their inner feelings, and then pretty soon they're teaching her to dance, and, just all this stuff right here, it tends to be a feast or famine. And as far as like the tough inner city school, I guess it all starts with Sidney Poitier and oh crap, what's the name of that film? To Serve with Love. And so you start with that, and it really has not gotten much different. I mean, Concrete Jungle with I think it was William Ford. these kind of movies that show this kind of gritty kind of life, or it's just a bunch of goofballs, like Teachers, where, Nick Nolte and Joe Beth Williams, and you got the guy dressing up as George Washington who escaped from a funny farm, and he's the best history teacher anyone's ever seen. What do you even do with that? I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, the sad part is I can't think of much in between those extremes, at all. It's really hard to portray what happens in a classroom. I think the tendency is to look at the school, look at the hallways where they release kids in there, or athletic fields, but in a classroom, that's a complicated. I mean, it's a little ecosystem of its own. And you can't do it justice unless you filmed it over, a year, and the personalities that come out and the dynamics. It's too much. So you kind of trivialize it. But you're right there, and then there's the impression from the press, and sometimes there are human interest stories of a teacher doing some great things, but usually they're being arrested or fired for certain behaviors, or or there's a school shooting, and that's right. Another insight into just how frightening it is in a school. Apparently, so parents have all kinds of views, well beyond reality.
And you get that sometimes when people talk to you about you being a teacher, because prior to 2020, I'd have people go, man, don't you worry about someone coming into the school and shooting up the place? I'm like, no, I never think about it until someone brings it up to me in the form of a question, like you just did. I can't. I mean, and the same thing with the pandemic. Aren't you afraid of getting COVID? I've had it. I got it. I don't think about it. I think it's problematic if you think about these things often. I think that's a sign of some other issues, But as far as that goes, that doesn't generally track with me when people bring stuff like that up.
Well, I would say that teachers are always going to vote with their feet, and they are leaving the profession. I doubt that they're leaving because parents don't like them, or their ratings with they have all kinds of other reasons. And what will take the teachers out would be, number one, technology. Because that's definitely happening, and number two, something like Amazon, where when you look at what they're paying, suddenly they're paying more, significantly, and the teachers will say, wait a minute, here's what I'm getting, here are the working conditions, and here's the stress, and look at the money. So it's a bit of a calculation on the part of teachers. We spent a lot of episodes talking about the other side, of there's something that keeps a teacher in there. It's not just lack of confidence, because I do think the longer you're a teacher, the less confident you are that you can do anything outside of the classroom. But at the same time, there's something that draws you to that schedule and to be in that room with the kids and what it brings you. So it's rather complicated, but probably the impressions from the outside aren't helping. That I guess, to say it simpler, I think people outside of teaching could do a lot more to help teachers.
Well, that goes back again to my original question. Mm-hmm. What would it look like to be appreciated? Is it people coming into the schools to do everything that you don't absolutely have to do yourself? Is it principals that let you wear jeans, until whenever? I mean, all of these are good things. I'm not knocking any of these things. But, sometimes I struggle when I hear about teachers saying, I'm going to quit, or I'm going to leave, or whatever the case may be. Because oftentimes the issues that they have are not new. I mean, these are not things that just popped up over the last couple of years. And so sometimes people will then equate it to what's happened over the last couple of years, but I'm just not sure it's really that way. I mean, I'm sure I'm wrong. I'm sure there are tons of people that are specifically leaving just because they can't handle the stress. And I understand that. But at the same time, what job doesn't have stress? What job doesn't have issues? So it seems like it's a combination of things. And again, I go back to wondering what would have made that situation better? What would have dealing with COVID? What would that look like to make it better? I don't know. Because ultimately you just have to kind of, put your nose to the grindstone and just go after it. Put your head down and go after it, and that's why I struggle about how to look at, different things about why people leave and, why they choose what they say is the reason why they leave and what may be the real reason why they're leaving. Because a lot of times those are two different things. So I don't know how to take it.
Well, that's a confusing state of affairs, because, we're kind of ambivalent to, what's happening. We want it to be better for teachers. That's our whole point here, is to support teachers, but we don't really know how. It's like when you were thanked for being in the military, is that enough, or, is there some action behind the words?
The district in which I teach and in which your students attend just gave us a one-off $1,000, bump in our salary, in our paycheck. And I think it pops in at the end of February or something like that. And I remember talking to a group of teachers in the hallway, and I heard one teacher say, I would have preferred a day off.
Wow.
And I sitting there going, so first of all, this is our job. This is what we do. Second of all, you got $1,000, so you can afford to have a day docked if you want to go in that direction. But there's also the idea that if someone was handing out free ice cream in the town square, there'd be people bitching that it was vanilla and not chocolate or something. So part of me who looks at people who complain about something like $1,000, which is not chump change. I mean, it may be chump change to other folks. It's not to me. It's not like I can't use $1,000. But to me, when I hear people complain about it or say, I wish it was something else, I don't understand the mindset. I mean, I'd like an extra day off, but that's not what we got. We got $1,000. I think it's fine. We can't have a day off because we still have to get to the end of the school year, and then we get 2.5 months off. So even when people do things, that's it. Even if someone did something, even if a school district or a superintendent or or whatever, even if they did something to show their appreciation, there'd be teachers kvetching about it in the hallway saying, well, they could have gotten us this, or they should, that money would have been better spent on, And I'm like, you can't win for losing. If you're a superintendent or you're a principal, you cannot win for losing because someone's always going to bitch about it.
Wow.
We don't deserve to be treated.
No. One big union,
But you understand what I'm saying? This type.
Yeah. I still think that, just in general, yeah, give them the day off and pay them more all the time, not as a occasional thing out of the blue, which is nice.
Sure.
But there's just a lot of things, shorten the number of hours they have, and increase their planning periods, go to year-round schooling or not. But there, so there are things and involve teachers in decision making, take their opinion, don't micromanage them. Lots of things that can make their job better and to professionalize the profession. And we've written about that. But I think that there's no way you can make up for for all the turmoil the teachers go to with a little payment under the table. Here you go.
How many times have you had a principal or district personnel ask the teachers what they think, and you'll get one of two responses? Okay. You'll get either the response of, well, they had already made their mind up. They're just doing this for show to make it look like that, we're being inclusive to include teachers into the conversation. Or they're saying, listen, this is above my pay grade. What am I supposed to say about this sort of thing? Just make decisions, be a leader, do something that's on the behalf of everybody. I mean, you can't win for losing. And I will say, and I've often said, the teachers are the most complaining, kvetching lot of folks I've ever come across. And so so that's why sometimes I'm just struck by the fact of, when I hear we're not appreciated. Okay, sure. Yeah, I can understand that. But what's the next part of your tirade? What's the next sentence that you have to say? That's what I'm interested in. And oftentimes it ends there. It ends after the first blurb, and then you're just left back where you started from.
Well, there needs to be a little detail or an ask. We would like this. But to round this out, but at the end of this broadcast, you're like bashing teachers and they're complaining.
Yes.
And so you're perpetuating this by bad mouthing teachers publicly from Ross Miller of all people.
Listen, I mean, there's not one group of folks that are going to have an issue with this, that, or the next thing. I don't think that's breaking any ground. The question is, what is the overall vibe or atmosphere of a place? And what is the overall idea that people have about teachers? Is it one of respect? Do they respect us? After parents had to do Zoom education by themselves in the spring of 2020, the only thing I heard in August of 2020 when we went back to school was about the idea of extending grace. And, listen, we understand the teachers are having a tough time. Even parents who complained or sent emails to me to complain, they always prefaced their remarks with, listen, I know it's very difficult for y'all. You have a lot. So to me, that's appreciative. Even if what they say next is horrible,
everything after the thank you.
But. And so my thing is this is not necessarily about teachers in and of themselves, but I just think it's about what we assume are the expectations of or the benefits of teaching, and what we assume are the byproducts of it. And in some cases, I think people have a misunderstanding of what that's supposed to be. And on the second hand, I would suggest that even people who set out to appreciate teachers are going to take it in the shorts at some point or another from some group or another. And so at the end, I'm just not sure what the point of the conversation is.
It's a terrible conversation. And people like us, I mean, we were, and you're still in the classroom. We didn't really care. In fact, we weren't taking suggestions from parents, nor from our administrators. Nor from our students for that matter, but particularly parents. I mean, we would answer an email, but that didn't change our day. We had a business to do. We had work to accomplish, and we were the experts in the room. And the same thing about, vice principals coming into your room with the clipboard. They're there, but you're not really interested in what they have to say. Oh, I didn't know that. Wow, that's really helpful. I'm going to shift, same thing. So maybe teachers shouldn't care what people think about them. They're making a choice as adults to be in that profession, and they have their reasons. They're appreciated or not, doesn't matter.
Right. Well, it'd be interesting to, because we're kind of joking about having an elementary teacher. It'll never happen at this rate.
No.
But it would be interesting. We've had some folks on. It'd be interesting to have somebody on from Germany. We have plenty of contacts there. I mean, just to kind of get what does the other side of the fence look like? Is the grass really greener on the other side of things? That would be kind of interesting to do. I believe.
I think everybody would rather hear from somebody else than us. And
indeed,
and our highest ratings happen when we had guests.
Yes,
on all accounts. So that should tell us something.
All right, well, I'll get on getting some people in here then.
Okay, we'll believe it when we see it.
All right, very good. All right, well, good luck to you today. Have fun.
Yeah,
I think it's going to get above freezing, so good times ahead.
It is.
Yeah.
Well,
and so I shall say adieu, Herr Dr. Bourgeois.
Auf Wiedersehen, auf Wiederhören, Herr Miller.